Jared's been putting in a lot of time working with engineering A and myself to try and get in all of the detailed inputs for to actually get a HERS score. And we were working till late last night, trying to actually get something outputted. And we had kind of just been coming across a lot of errors and sort of warnings in the details that go into the REM rate software that's for the HERS calculation. And some of the heating and cooling loads that we're getting from that don't really make sense because it's not outputting any sort of cooling loads demanded from the space. Where apparently we might not be able to actually get a HERS score for a multifamily building in this software. That was one of the warnings that we were sort of coming across. And essentially what we kind of wanted to talk about is that it's like, I think that at least for me, I'm kind of coming to this like realization that there might be some levels of detail to this like design and building that we might have, we had done our best with research and sort of like educated, I guess, maybe guessing, if you will, with like the way that we've been trying to incorporate like or specify these technical systems that we wanted to implement. But it hasn't really been coming together in terms of getting these final outputs that I feel like are pretty important to the really determining of like whether or not this building is zero energy or like sustainable all around, because we've put in like, all of the wall values, the doors, the windows, with engineering A, all the building materials. Jared and I had put in like, to our best of our ability, the HVAC, the lighting, the appliance loads, the water heater, and we're coming up unsuccessful, and it's been definitely like a pretty frustrating journey, but we wanted to talk to you guys about that and see what you think, because like, without those numbers, like a HERS score and EUI, like that's kind of one of the principal metrics that I feel like Solar Decathlon looks at in this sort of like judging criterion. Like Jared's reached out to the REM rate software this morning. We've been trying to sort of like work around it, but like I don't want to admit it, but like I think that I've been bested by the just like kind of the sheer nature of like what it takes to really design technical systems without just like the practical experience. And I don't know if that means that we, the two kind of routes that Jared and I were talking about were, one, in an extreme case, which would be, obviously pretty heavy for all of us, is just like not being able to submit something with like these kind of final outputs. The other case is sort of like, we believe that, it's important for everyone's hard work to be validated and recognized, even if it doesn't mean that it's like we would be like placing necessarily, or if they would like disqualify us for not having these types of values, or but we wanted to just bring it to your guys' attention that like we've tried so hard trying to get these numbers and like working with these softwares, but it's just been like hitting roadblock after roadblock. So that's kind of where we were at last night and sort of this morning when we met. Just wanted to get your guys' opinions on that.
Well, so one thing that I will say from years of working with energy software, not actually, putting the details into the energy software so much as sort of dealing with engineers who've been frustrated by ways in which it doesn't approximate the specifics of the modeled conditions and so on. This kind of thing isn't entirely unusual, and there are a lot of challenges inherent in this sort of modeling exercise, right? It's very quickly the case that actual kind of idiosyncrasies or conditions make it complicated to get that output. And what does happen usually in those cases? So one real example that we see in a lot of sort of dormitories or kind of the equivalent of multifamily housing, where the loads are relatively low compared to like an office building or a lab or something like that. If you have a really well shaded and thermally insulated envelope, which it seems like you would, you might not have much of a cooling load, right? And Title 24 kind of assumes that you're going to have a mechanical system. A lot of our buildings really don't need a kind of air conditioning in order to be comfortable in most of the times of the year in our climate, right? And so that's a kind of unusual condition that we have here in Southern California. But generally what we had to do in those kinds of situations is find values that make sense to put into the software to kind of generate the output that's understood, and then have notations or narratives explaining why, right? So, I think especially if you're doing this in a national context, you explain that we have very mild climate, we have a really well shaded and self-shaded envelope, and we have also a really high performance envelope for its location. So the whole idea is that the cooling loads get very, very low, and you also have kind of marginal to not extreme heating loads very much of the time, and which can be well served by electricity. So you should be getting to a situation where you have pretty low conditions. And I think when you have a net zero sort of situation like this, that's the other thing you can you can definitely find that the software might be pointing you in one direction, whereas the actual conditions kind of get a little strange. So I would say trying to write a narrative about what that is, or then finding a workaround in the inputs just to get an output that makes sense, is something that happens all the time. That happens on lead projects, and it happens I think in terms of kind of code compliance sometimes as well.
Thank you for that. That's definitely a bit comforting. I had calculated cooling loads using a software called CoolCalc that gives you kind of rough manual J calculations for the heating and cooling to size the HVAC system.
Mhm.
And based on our location and the kind of the space that I had sort of inputted, I detailed as many things as I could in working through the software as it relates to like the building and the building envelope. And like I had calculated a cooling load, but I think when Gavin had calculated something through another software, there might have not been a cooling load, or maybe there wasn't a heating load. And then Jared also got either he didn't get a cooling load. So it's just like we're facing like a lot of discrepancies that are just like a little bit confused, or more than a little bit confusing, a lot of it confusing, I'd say. And
yeah, this is what he's talking about, the cooling loads that are absent here. If you can see in annual loads and in annual consumption, there is a design load for cooling, but the annual loads and consumption are absent. And we have, and I'm sorry for cutting you off, Sterling. I just wanted to make sure that
no, you're good.
people can actually see it here. I think one of the other difficulties was that when we tried modeling the water heater, this is kind of a big annual consumption number relative to, say, like heating and lighting and appliances. And even if we took away the amount of energy provided through solar PV, in a theoretical sense, the zero energy building, it should be, that consumed energy minus your PV generation should be around zero. But it doesn't look like that. That's the case here, at least. So that was kind of one of the other things that we're kind of frustrated about this software is kind of, are there things that we're missing that, or should we be looking for to have this indicate that it is zero energy? But to Sterling's point, the cooling, the absence of that, and I thank you, Professor Lynch, for giving us some more details on that in like a more practical context. But this is just kind of a look into the software that we've been messing with and some of the values that we were given. And just real quick, and I'll hand this off to Sterling real quick. One of the things that we noticed when we were looking at the HER score is that if you were to look at to the right of the screen over here under building, where I have highlighted, it mentions that HER's ratings can only be calculated for individual dwelling units. HER ResNet as of the 15th of December 2016. So I believe this was implying that for a multifamily, it wouldn't get a HER score for the entire building. This software would only do it for like individual ones. And we kind of found this out rather late into the game. Prior, like Sterling said, we had met with, Kaiji and, Kenny in Engineering A. Gavin was able to give us some numbers, and Hayden as well for this. So there was a lot of inputs that went into the software, ranging from the building information and, ranging from that to the foundation walls and the slab and the floors, rim and band joists, the walls, windows, and assigning them to each wall that we created, the doors, ceiling, skylight, space conditioning, ventilation, and all of that. So given that we didn't, we saw that like, oh, it wouldn't give us a HER score for the whole building. We aim to try and get a EUI, which, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Sterling, but according to Solar Decathlon, that's basically taking your energy consumption, dividing it by the gross area, I believe, or something along those lines.
Right. Yeah.
So that annual energy consumption is what we've been trying to kind of salvage from this effort into the software. But since the numbers aren't making sense in terms of, we have a lot coming from water heating, there wasn't any cooling initially, and the PV doesn't seem to be enough to cancel out the ones above. We're not too sure how we would kind of articulate that in the design narrative in terms of the energy performance. The metric that we know for sure that makes sense is the PV generation, because we use PV watts, which is through, I believe, NREL, and those were simple inputs and what have you. But it's this software, the REM rate software, that is trying to account for, lighting, water heating, heating and cooling. So that's just kind of a look into the software and kind of what we've been dealing with. But I'll hand it back to Sterling in case you want to add anything.
Yeah, just wanted to add one thing real quick. So if we were to take that number and assume that like those loads were relatively accurate, that 200, corresponds to 281,900 kBTUs per year of energy consumption, which divided by the floor area of 12,500 square feet, we get an EUI of 22.5, or basically like between 22 and 23, which our target according to the project guidelines. Do you have those up, Jared?
So the thing is, I don't know if I'll try and bring them up. I don't know if they had if they differentiated an EUI coming from the site or the source. But let me see. So they had target EUIs. EUI is just another energy metric that could be helpful for, that was required for this project. So they have like a certain climate zone. We're in 3B, and these are the numbers. This is source energy, and I believe the energy that was given, energy consumption through this, is the site energy, I believe. Can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know if those two are one and the same. they are linked via conversion factor, which is here. So energy source and energy site. And there's a
If
conversion
you're Jared,
factor.
are you looking to share your screen?
Oh, yeah, my bad. Did I not share? My bad.
Yeah, so site energy and source energy are definitely not the same, and the efficiency of the source energy would translate and help. But I think in a utility context, there's site energy makes sense to use.
Right.
So
And go ahead and scroll down, Jared, just at
Yeah.
that table.
yeah, I'm not mad at using the site energy. It's just that this table has source and these are the targets. So even if we were to get a site energy that made sense, right? We're not too sure like what metric we would compare to, what target we compare it to. I think we're in 3B according to that iteration of climate zones. So yeah, for multifamily building, this is the source EY.
Yeah, I mean, I think for utility service, you can probably treat it as pretty comparable. I mean, I think you just have to use it as one and the same and just list that as an assumption, as a kind of interpretation.
So that number 73, like the number that I calculated based on the energy consumption from the HERS score is 22, which is significantly less than what we're looking at here. But I mean, this is definitely taking like, as we were working to try and like input different things into this software, we were having some complications like with like duct work and some of the ventilation stuff, just because, like, to be perfectly honest, like we just don't know any better. Like there's just things that we hadn't really, I had personally had never come across, and like that's kind of been I'd say that one of the themes of this endeavor, which has been awesome, trying to learning a lot as I go, I would say. But we're just not really sure how to properly input some of this stuff without just like doing general, some general estimations and guesswork. And so that might kind of play, and like if that's done in a couple of different areas, like maybe some on like the engineering A side, if they're working with that same sort of methodology as like, doing our best with kind of research and trying to apply it to this sort of system, this situation, like that might sort of accumulate into like rough estimations or problems that we're coming across with this software. Not saying that it's at the fault of anyone. Like everyone's put in like so much work and done an amazing job, like up to this point. So I mean, again, it kind of just comes back to like what we should, like how we should kind of proceed with this project, if like I don't know how much sense that these like consumptions make, or like I'm not really sure kind of where to go next.
Okay, so are you getting something that is more like a approximation of zero in other software that you're using?
Well, I'd say the short answer is no. The short answer is no. Yeah.
The software that Gavin used, the Climate Studio, that gave us like a zero cooling load, right?
It gave us a site EUI of 31.
I mean, that's not terribly far off.
Right, and that was without like introducing a ground source heat pump. And I think that not really many of the appliances or anything were factored into that, as well as the photovoltaics. So, I mean, it could be that like we experienced like an increase in the energy consumption caused by like introducing the appliances in this load, but like our large area of like a PV array sort of offset that and even further reduce the site EUI that was estimated from what you had before, Gavin. But like just want to make sure that we're feeling confident with these numbers, because like we want to make sure that we're putting our best foot forward for this competition. And it's just like, for me personally, it was just like a little discouraging to feel like, for all of this work and like for things to not feel like they were making sense. Like if that's putting our best foot forward with this, or if like, really submitting something without having these metrics that I feel like are some of the principal things that they're asking for, even like in the beginning of this document, that like outline the actual performance of the building. And like, we can only design in theory as well as we can, but like when it comes to like number crunching, like that's kind of what they were really asking of us in this final submission. And just have been struggling to kind of like deliver those metrics, I think. Which
so yeah, I mean, I think it would be good to include summaries of the other analyses and sort of what those other assumptions were. I don't know if it's possible to enter to kind of reverse engineer into this software a different not in the software itself, but just like entries that can result in a different sort of site EOI, that's closer to what you had. The other thing that occurs to me is that I think there's a big difference between, the conditioning for a space that reads as 125,000 square feet versus, or whatever that large figure was, but then versus a bunch of individual units that add up. Is there a version where you've got, because I think that at the scale of the individual unit, for the HERS rating and so on, you might find that a portion of the PV offsets it differently, because it just would, I'm not sure that the surface ratio of the enclosure is kind of getting reflected into the into the condition here. Like you'd have a lot of internal or somewhat more internal units that operate a little differently. I think if you how many total units do you have in the building? 12. If you took those, if you did one and kind of multiplied that out by 12 and even had an additional factor, you might get a different kind of read on the EUI, rather, sort of if it were treated as an additive thing. And I don't know, I think that might
be wanted to get around the single unit kind of constraint of that software.
Right, to sort of, right, you sort of have an alternate calculation method. And, but then, because I do think that probably the cooling load can be less. I know that a lot of the Title 24 software has sort of defaults that it works with, where it, sort of, because they're worried about code-based systems, they always sort of assume a less efficient unit than the ones that are actually being provided. And, there may be more efficiencies that are in the project that aren't really coming into the model quite yet somehow, because of kind of assumptions that are in like the pull down menus for the software. So there's usually a fair amount of customization that has to happen with these things in terms of just like being able to enter a different sort of data point for the start point. But yeah, I would say that the PV is, although it generates a ton of energy, it's usually not nearly as much as people kind of want it to be, and then the loads often add up. You can do a lot with sort of more efficient equipment, more efficient lighting, and so on. But then there's a sort of default level that you just kind of have to contend with. So yeah, I would say that for the submission, the best thing to do is to try to explain the discrepancies, and basically the parameters that you think would get you closer to net zero, or would achieve it. I would use the other software analyses to just say, according to these parameters, sort of that, and then like the individual, if you can do a run for an individual unit and say, here's the individual unit with the HERS rating, and see where that comes out. You may find at the individual level that you can get to a net zero condition. which you wouldn't necessarily with the larger ensemble somehow.
So like bottom line, it feels like we need to somehow get greater confidence in EUI scores that we're getting from the softwares, right?
Or like a HERS score if we were to try and from what I saw, there's it's like there's 3, I guess the building is almost broken up into 8 larger modules that are 39 by 39 according to the site plans. I don't know if we would want to break just one of those up or take a look at one of them or something like that, and kind of just go from there. But this, I feel like it is just like a big question for I guess the rest of the team. Like, do you guys, how do you feel about, like, I guess moving forward with kind of everything that Jared and I have mentioned?
It's kind of like if we go the way that we kind of thought about it, and we'll open it up to you guys to see what you think. Obviously, like the one option, which is not the most pleasant, most ideal, would be to drop out. The other option would be to go forward. And it seems like the worst case scenario would be that we get disqualified because we lack, maybe if we're not able to get a kind of energy metric that makes sense, and they're able to see that and they disqualify, that's like the worst case scenario, I would imagine. The best case scenario would be that, we are able to get feedback on all portions of our project. And I like that because it does allow all the work that ARC team and Engineering A, everyone who has pitched in and all the work, to have the opportunity to get feedback and to be acknowledged. The only thing, because if we weren't, the only thing that would be lacking is that if we weren't able to get an energy metric that made sense, that would most definitely likely not allow us to place top 3 or anything like that. We get that feedback right. So it's kind of an establishing expectations. At least that's how I thought about it. That's how, when me and Sterling were talking, we thought about it. So with the limited amount of time, I'm not too sure if we can get an energy metric that makes sense. We can try with the individual unit and see if we can get a HERS rating for it. As of now, the software, even though it acknowledges that, multifamily, we don't do HERS rating, but we only do individual, I'm still not getting a HERS rating now. So there's some things in the software that need to kind of give in that we still don't know about. And it's probably buried in a bunch of reports in the software. But yeah, just kind of wanted to know y'all's opinion on kind of the state at which we're in, because this is such a huge metric that's needed. It's in Appendix C. It's, pretty much the ground basis for like indicating how well your building is actually doing in terms of energy performance and how close it is to zero energy. And that's such a crucial part of this project, so what do y'all think?
I kind of joined late, but I would say I like the second option you talked about. Yeah, I'm not sure how much more work you guys think it would take, but if you have like anything I can help with, I have time today.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough that it's so late in the game, but like maybe we could try and contact someone who's an expert in the software. I do think Solar Decathlon had posted something about consultants or advisors. It seems maybe a little late to do that.
I tried joining. RemRate has so the video, right, that was provided by Solar Decathlon for this specific software, I looked at it prior and they had, like some contact info. I tried calling them, but it kind of just went to, hey, like, we're not available, leave a message. So I'm gonna try and, keep calling. Hopefully someone can pick up. I tried joining Google Groups that was kind of a support software for this like software that we're using. and I wasn't for some reason they didn't accept my like asking to join that. And the support stuff on their website, it's none of them really get to kind of the difficulties that we're encountering with on this. um so there is that, but I did try and reach out to even though it's late, I reached out to Solar Decathlon to try and ask. I acknowledge that it's pretty, our final deadline is tomorrow, but at the very least maybe this can help like a future design team. And I kind of asked, is there someone who we can, who's able to provide feedback in terms of troubleshooting or aiding in troubleshooting, or is the REM software support the only option that we have? So I don't know when I'm going to get a response to that email, probably not in time, but at the very least it could be like a point of guidance in terms of this particular area for like the future design team.
Yeah, I would really encourage to just submit, as much and as complete version and as corrected as you can generate, and just you've already got a ton of amazing material, and you've gone through all the calculations and so on. Then if there's a way to kind of tweak and add to that, or submit supplementary information about it, I would say that's the best way to go. I would recommend also taking a stab at adjusting maybe the cooling or heating loads or some of the appliance loads, because I think you might be able to say, well, we're going to make a different assumption about how much, if that's a parameter you're allowed to mess with, if we can do anything to reduce the loading so that we can approximate net zero. I think that would be another thing to try, because you can do that in the main model and just see if you can get your outputs to be closer to where you need it to be. Because I think between that and the site energy, like there's a bridgeable gap, but it's definitely seems like a high number of degree days for our climate, to be honest, because I think it looks like a lot more heating and a lot more cooling. Cooling makes some sense, but
yeah, it should definitely be like when you subtract the PV, be closer to zero, given like us trying to go above and beyond kind of the specifications for our building components.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, I would almost argue, like, I've been thinking about it, and I mean, an electric water heater probably has a pretty, especially at like a commercial grade, to be able to support 12 units and let's say around 30 residents. That's a load that probably wouldn't be able to be offset purely by solar. Yeah, I mean, I think that there's probably like, based on the ground source heat pumps that we had selected, and that commercial water heater, there was like options for it to be sort of dual sourced rather than purely electric, which means that there could have been some sort of water to water heat exchange possibly coming from the ground source heat pump to sort of interact with that and maybe expel some additional waste heat to the electric water heater to make it more efficient. But like, to be able to move large amounts of water from, say, 40 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit to like 125, 130 before it moves to actually supply hot water, I think takes a significant amount of energy. So maybe, and we don't have enough on-site renewables to sort of offset that. And I think that if we're trying to beat a metric of, say, based on the project guidelines, was like 73, was a source EUI of 73 kBTUs per feet squared per year, and we're getting like 22. I mean, that's not, I don't think that that's like necessarily bad if that is a metric that's more accurate. But I'm not too sure. I think that it makes sense that I think it makes more sense that we're not net zero, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, net
just-
zero is really hard for this building type. I mean, so it's not like that's not a surprising conclusion. I think the thing that is always surprising is how much you need to shave off the loads in order for that to kind of square. But I think between the site energy and source energy question, the the sort of multifamily nature of the thing and whether or not the software can really accommodate that, and then if there are ways to reflect that in the loads. I think, for instance, for the for the heat exchange, to be able to capture that, you might include a factor that says, okay, well, this is going to assume 20% heat recovery. So like if there are ways to kind of adjust the figures, you sometimes have to customize in order to make the output make sense, or to kind
Right,
of capture efficiencies, because this stuff it is very difficult to kind of demonstrate for kind of code authorities sometimes, because the modeling software isn't robust enough to really capture all of that dynamic input, even though it's kind of incorporating a lot of other kinds of calculations that doesn't always necessarily reflect the true efficiencies of the systems that are being put in.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Jared and I can try and sort of work around that. I think the other just kind of important thing would be for this meeting at least would be to go through the rest of the design narrative, and just, I guess, people can say which parts they would want to do for each of the contest narratives, because I think, Gavin, you did the architecture one, and we kind of just have to split up the rest of those narratives amongst engineering A and B, for the most part. So I can go ahead and share my screen and show what that looks like. Or I guess real quick, is there anyone else that wanted to sort of like touch on this
Yeah.
this conundrum?
Yeah. So for Jared and Sterling, when are you guys meeting later on? Like what time are you guys meeting again?
I'm not sure. It's kind of
You-
just like, yeah, we've been meeting like a lot. So
Okay, yeah.
We'll
I
have
don't know exactly
our
when.
class. We only have like one class meeting the rest of the day, so it's just us. We have to go back with each other and tell each other
Yeah.
our availabilities.
Yeah, do you want me to like call Tomas and Kian, that was in the Sword Decathlon team 2 years ago, to join the conversation, because they might know a leeway to just get that index.
Well, I worked with Tomas last year, and like he doesn't know much at all about the HERS.
Like Kian, should I just make a call to him?
I mean, he wasn't a part of the team last year, from what I remember.
Yeah, he was in the team 2 years ago, yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, you can try if you want, but like it would be extremely difficult for someone to, I think, to
Doesn't
like
know any- yeah.
take a look at, like, kind of like digest our issue as a whole that's like we've been working on and sort of like following along with,
Mm-hmm.
and try to come up with a solution that's more viable than what Professor Lynch has already sort of helped us out with, and
Mhm.
just like trying to make adjustments to the technology and to some of the like efficiency ratings and stuff, and see if we can get something that's a little bit more a little bit closer to net zero, or just breaking down our building into different components to try and get an idea of a single unit, maybe, and I guess like scaling up from there, kind of playing around with that stuff. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
but yeah, so kind of to that point, just to show my screen here.
And real quick, for I know for Kaiji and Kenny, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to or express any of your thoughts concerning where we're at right now. If you do, feel free to either interject, or you can put it in the chat if you wish. And apologies for kind of this kind of issue has kind of hijacked the majority of this meeting. I'm sure that y'all had updates that you wanted to, share with us, but me and Sterling felt that this was a very crucial thing that needed attention right away. So I hope you can forgive us for taking a bunch of your time, and we're grateful for your patience and everything. So if you have
Yeah.
any more thoughts, feel free to say them now or put them in the chat. Let us
Yeah.
know.
I have just two quick things. I was thinking we do have like specifically a building science professor, Alan Locke. He was actually in Colorado last semester, but he's here this semester. He might have experience with the software. I'll just try emailing him. Maybe we could set up like an in-person meet like tomorrow or something, just as like if it's possible. And the other thing I would say is that maybe I can go back through the climate consultant or the Cove tool software and just rerun it one more time to see how the numbers end up and how close they are to ours.
Yeah, I mean, my sense is that there are things like efficiencies or installation levels or things like that that might, you might even just need to define those as this would be the revised version of what we try to get into the units or something like that. We know we need to lower the units, and so we're going to, install, receptacles that sort of shut down between, when they're not being used or whatever, and sort of other systems that would help to limit, plug loads further or something like that. I mean, things, there may be other kind of assumptions that you could kind of layer in there, but I think that's a good approach, Kevin. And I think Alan would have some good insights.
Okay.
All right, Max,
Yeah.
Kaiji, did you want to say anything? If not, I think we need to really try and delegate what the final deliverables we have, because we have some people who are going to be working on software, probably working on portions of the design narrative too, depending on how far ahead we are in that. So it's understood that we're going to have to really kind of put in the work with whatever is left here, but in terms of kind of like delegating, I think that's one of the things that we should do before we end today's meeting.
Yeah, agreed. So I guess just going through these contest narratives, because I got a chance to write about the technical goals yesterday. But just looking at these contest narratives, so Gavin touched on the architecture. I included both the things that Jared, Oliver, and I had like just kind of talked about for each, like just things that sort of came to our mind for each of these like areas, as well as the bullet points that you see under each of these are the criteria that are outlined in the project guidelines for these project guidelines that were included in the like sort of what the jurors are going to be, I guess, judging us on almost. So looking at this, we're talking about the envelope design, structural system considerations in the foundation, looking at and then just basically looking at like the MEPs from a high level view. So I think like someone from engineering A will probably want to touch on the first two portions, and then someone, either myself or Jared, can touch on the other systems. So maybe the best way to do this is just volunteer and say, yeah, I'm in to talk about the engineering. So is there anyone from engineering A that wants to speak on the envelope design and the structural system and the foundation?
Yeah, I can do that first bullet point. Is there like a length we want for this, or?
I wouldn't be too concerned with that. I would just write, you know, as much like add as much detail as you have available to you. You know, kind of with our time crunch and with, you know, we have to finalize this and include like lists of figures. We probably want to try and get this done as quickly as possible.
Yeah,
So,
I'll try to
yeah,
work on that.
you know,
right
just
now.
doing your best is probably probably enough.
Yeah,
And Jared, I'm happy to do the I can like touch on the other three components for the HVAC, the lighting, and the plumbing for this one.
yeah, we can split or kind of help supplement for these because I know that we both have varied knowledge in each of these. I am curious, Gavin. I remember when we made our Gantt chart for this, you had assigned majority of this. If I can just share my screen real quick,
Yeah.
I'll hand it back to you after. But how do you feel about splitting this up? Because I remember when we filled this out that you essentially kind of assigned this mostly to you along with Hayden and Alan. So I was curious, do you think that delegating in this particular way, obviously like it would take the load off of you and help you kind of to, you know, focus on other areas. Are you down with, is there like a better way you think we should split it, or do you think we should just continue on kind of like volunteering certain sections in the document?
I think this makes sense just because I am not as well versed, especially in the engineering section. I am going to be still covering, well, obviously I did the architecture, market analysis. You know, I just feel like a lot of the other stuff was initiated by the engineering team. So I could definitely write some stuff about it, but I don't think I'm gonna be able to be as detailed or accurate as you guys can be. I mean, yeah, we should probably just break it up like we're doing now. Like in terms of the document experience, I can definitely do that one. And probably the same for the comfort and environmental quality, maybe. But like things like the energy performance, that's going to need to be eng.
Yeah, we'll be able to do that. But yeah, I mean, Gavin, you've put in like so much work into this already. And like you said, we could probably help a little bit with like the things that concern engineer, like just the engineering portions a little bit more. So just looking at this, also we want to make sure for the engineering, or just touching on like what we're doing for the foundation. I think it's great on slab with an enclosed crawl space, if that's, I'm right there.
Yeah, I think with Kaiji, and Kaiji can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we modeled in the software 2 slabs, one on the crawl space and one on the main floor. But there's definitely a slab on the crawl space, so it has to at least have that, right?
Yeah.
All right, for sure. And then as for durability and resistance, the like building enclosure integration, I think that this kind of just would probably be something for engineering A. Prevailing resilience risks, we can address that as engineering B, just with like speaking to our just on-site renewables to add some resilience to any sort of grid disruptions.
Wait, I forgot,
And-
Kenny, did you do some research on resilience? Because I thought I saw something on the Miro board under like where we split up a bunch of sub teams. I saw some writing up on that. Oh, okay. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was Kenneth. I'm not sure. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So is there someone, I guess it's either Kenny, Kaiji, or Takeo that wants to talk about just like the building enclosure integration? So kind of just talking about how we want to minimize our infiltration rate type building envelope. and like the materials that are selected to achieve that?
I mean, I don't know much about it, but I can try. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then Jared or I can talk about just our energy resilience. Embodied environmental impact, that's going to be probably an engineering A sort of area.
Yeah, someone who's worked on the LCA.
LCA, Takeo. Yeah.
Yeah, I sent in like the results into the Discord, but I think so. Can I like input graphs and stuff into this file, or is
Yeah,
there a specific-
definitely. We definitely want figures for each of these. That's worth mentioning. Like we want figures and diagrams.
Okay, so I'll do
where they're applicable.
this embodied environmental impact and that initial that first bullet point engineering, and then maybe someone else can take up resilience because I still have to go through a bunch of the results for the LCA.
Okay. Kaiji or Kenny, are you guys good with talking about the resilience?
Looks like Kenny's got it.
Okay, cool. So maybe it's worth mentioning who's going to talk about this stuff.
You can feel free to either do that or comment.
Yeah, I'm
the
just gonna
certain
comment
sections.
my name by the things I'm gonna do.
Yeah, good idea.
Or
Good
like
idea.
put your initial next to it or make a comment, whatever is
Okay.
easier.
For integrated performance, I can do the integrated performance. This is how I comment. Nice. Oh,
Yeah, so in that case, then I can probably take a little bit of the previous section, just kind of high level on the MEPs.
okay.
We'll meet later on today and we can split it
Yeah.
more precisely how we're going to do it.
Okay. And then we just have, and then Jared and I will also take the energy performance. Okay. Yeah. And I mean, as for mechanical plans and scheduling and plumbing plans and schedules, like that's just stuff that we, or I guess me in particular, like I just didn't really know how to do, and kind of got pushed by the wayside as I was trying to work on this other research, and I apologize for that, but if that's something that we don't get to, it's something that we can just leave out because this is like the construction documentation. And then
I'll apologize as well because that particular, and like earlier, since these were like the construction details, we thought initially that this pertained more to like the build challenge, but if you were to kind of like look at a building like document and look at the mechanical plans, it's very complex looking at it. But yeah, we apologize for not being able to have something there or have something of like professional standard.
Hayden was able to complete some of these drawings. I know he's not in the meeting right now, but I can share the PDF that he uploaded. So people
okay. Awesome.
Yeah, I know that he has construction drawings that we can include in the part of it.
As far as inputting graphs and images into the file, do we have to index them somehow, or do we just put them in?
Probably put them in for now, and then I think we're gonna have to index them. Like that'll be a final thing because there's a list of figures and tables.
Yeah, we'll go through and title them last once we have them all in order.
Yeah.
So here's the plans, which are looking great. The roof, elevations, front and back elevation, sides, the actual door schedule, the modules themselves. A really good job with all these windows. These are the details from Kaiji, I believe. This is the, I think, floor finishes, which we've included the ceramic tiles for that thermal mass that we were talking about. And then he did go ahead and put in some very basic plumbing.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. That's awesome.
I think I don't know if this is supposed to be the lighting section. This seems to be not filled out yet, so I'll contact him about that. But I think that's the only thing that's missing, right? Is the lighting, or maybe the HVAC.
Yeah. I sent him. I created a lighting plan, but had kind of drew just on my iPad, like the different fixture counts and stuff. I did my best to make him look nice. So if he wants to just use my lighting plan instead, he can. But it doesn't have the, I guess, the uniformity of like how he's been doing everything in like the software rather than me just writing stuff down. So
Yeah, no, I think I'll contact him, but I think he should be able to complete those two for the final submission. I don't know about the HVAC, but definitely the lighting.
okay, yeah. Well, I think that's kind of all the stuff that's the big ticket items for the rest of this design narrative. And it'd probably be good for all of us to try and get that stuff done by the end of today so that tomorrow we can work on just finalizing the format and getting it turned in.
And also me and Sterling, when we meet, we'll put together our 30-second multimedia pitch for Max to put in. I know 5 is the latest, but I'm pretty sure we can get something earlier for you so that you're able to edit that into your video. So yeah, we want to make that.
Actually, around 20 seconds would be enough as well. Don't force it to be 30 seconds. If you, yeah, I mean, because like, just in case, I mean, there is quite a few parts.
Yeah.
But it means 30,
Right.
yeah.
We'll keep it at 20 seconds.
Yeah.
I have to hop out of here and prepare some things for another meeting.
Yeah. Okay.
But thank you guys for listening to Jared and I on that stuff that we were talking about earlier. And giving us some encouragement to push on with this, because we were definitely a little discouraged. At least I was a little discouraged last night, maybe more than a little discouraged. It was pretty tough. Just been working on this a lot. But yeah, we'll work hard to get something put together, and we'll Max, are we gonna meet one more time at some point, like tonight or tomorrow morning?
Yeah, I was thinking like, what time do you want to meet tonight? Because the thing is, for tomorrow, the exact submission date in our time PST is at 1 p.m. So it's gonna be a pretty rush if we just meet tomorrow. So we meet tonight and then tomorrow. Might be the most ideal thing to do for now. So for tonight, what time do you guys prefer? Does 8 p.m. work?
Yeah, that works for me.
8 p.m. works for me. Yeah.
Fine with me.
That's where all the classes should be like ended already. Okay, if that's the case, I'll send another calendar invites and emails. All of this recording to YouTube channel, so people who couldn't make it watch it. Yeah.
Just really quick, maybe Todd, we'll go ahead and send you kind of the documents as they are right now. If you want to just take a quick look over them and redline anything you think is egregious. Obviously, this is not as polished.
No, I was looking at it just now on the link that was provided. I think it's a working document and it's all looking strong. Yeah, I can definitely give it a final read through. There was one thing that I noticed right where it was like the code description, that there was dummy text that was supposed to be removed that hasn't been removed yet, I think. So yeah, let me know when's the right point to do that, and I'll be happy to take a look.
I think, Gavin, you had mentioned that you wanted to, are we gonna just use this to kind of put together all of the details and then we're gonna move it over to another document, or is that?
Yeah, I think that's probably the best way to keep the formatting consistent. So if everyone can just get their text and graphs and charts and stuff in here, I will then transfer it over to a final document after and make sure all the formatting is correct. I'll do that tomorrow before the deadline.
Thank you.
Thank you. Todd will be able to make it tonight at 8 p.m.
I don't know if Todd needs to attend that, as long as he can mark up our drawings.
Okay.
Well, I'll see. I don't know if I can make it later tonight, but if you send me the document, I'll send back comments. So
Okay.
I'll commit to that.
Thanks.
Okay. Congratulations, everybody. It's really fine work. It's looking good.
You guys, yeah.
All right,
Okay.
good luck, everyone.
All right, see you guys.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks for your work. See you tonight.